All right, let's jump into another deep dive. Today, we're going to explore the life of Salman al-Farsi, and we've got a few YouTube lectures that are going to, give us some insights into his life. Our
Yes.
goal today isn't just to give you the facts.
Right.
It's to really understand why his story
Yeah.
is so important, so powerful, and why it still resonates with people.
Mm.
Centuries later, what can WE as listeners learn from this guy's, experiences?
Well, I think this story's full of twists and turns, but I think what's most fascinating to me is how Salman's journey
Yeah,
really speaks to this universal human desire
yeah,
for truth and meaning.
absolutely. And to really get it, we have
Hmm.
to understand the world he was born into. So imagine this. Uh, a rivalry, right?
Yeah.
That lasted longer than the time between us
Wow.
and the Prophet Muhammad. We're talking about the 700-year war
Oh, wow.
between the Roman and the Persian
That's
empires.
a long time.
Yeah, I mean, that is crazy to
Yeah.
think about, right? And it
Yeah.
wasn't just about land or power.
Yeah.
These were massive clashes of faith too,
Right.
right?
Literally.
So you have Zoroastrianism,
Mm-hmm.
which with its, fire worship, that was the dominant faith in Persia.
Yeah.
And then you have a specific branch of Christianity in the Roman Empire.
Mm-hmm.
So this context is crucial because it really shaped his worldview.
Right.
Okay, so picture this, right?
Right.
You've got Salman, born into a life of privilege,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
His father is a high priest,
Why?
and he's living in a palace,
Privilege. Yes.
surrounded by luxury, and basically destined to follow in his father's footsteps, right?
Okay.
But even as a child, something just wasn't sitting right with him,
Yeah. Yeah, there's this deep yearning for truth within him,
Yeah.
and this sense that, there must be something more
Yeah,
to life than the rituals
yeah.
and beliefs he's been raised with.
Right, exactly. And then comes the turning point.
Okay.
He happens to stumble upon a Christian church
Mm-hmm.
and is completely captivated
Oh, wow.
by their rituals.
Yeah.
He even declares their religion is better than ours. Can you imagine the
Oh,
audacity
well.
of this teenager, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Saying that to his father, who's a high priest.
Especially to a high priest, his own father.
I mean, that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
But it speaks to his intellectual curiosity
Right.
and his courage. This guy's
Wow.
willing to question
Everything.
everything at such a young age.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes you wonder, what was it about Christianity
Yeah. What was
that resonated with him?
Right. Yeah.
Was it the emphasis on monotheism, or maybe the concept of a loving God,
Mm-hmm.
which maybe contrasts with the Zoroastrian belief system of his time?
Right.
Whatever it was, his father was furious.
Yes.
I mean, can
Yeah.
you imagine? So Salman ends up imprisoned
Wow.
for his newfound interest in Christianity.
Mm.
But you know what? This only strengthens his resolve.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is where it begins. Decades.
Wow.
Decades-long quest for knowledge.
Mm.
He travels from Persia to Syria, guided by, a series of teachers.
Oh, wow.
And each one kind of shapes his understanding of the world,
Yeah.
right?
This is where we see his incredible dedication
Yes.
and open-mindedness.
Yeah.
He's willing to risk everything, leave his comfortable life behind just to seek knowledge.
Yeah, and it's not exactly a smooth journey.
Right.
Right. He encounters mentors who are corrupt
Wow.
or on their deathbeds.
Oh, my gosh.
And he's constantly having to reassess and move on.
Yeah.
What do you think kept him going
Yeah.
through all of that? I mean,
Yeah.
was it purely faith, or was there something else
Yeah.
driving him?
It's hard to say for sure, but maybe it was this unwavering belief that truth exists
Yeah.
and it's worth sacrificing
Yeah.
everything for.
Yeah.
Or maybe even, this constant yearning for connection
Yeah.
with something greater than himself.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Right.
Talk about a roller coaster.
Oh, yeah.
And just when you think it can't get any wilder, fate throws another curveball.
Okay.
He gets betrayed by traveling merchants
Yo.
and sold into slavery.
Wow.
Yeah. And of all the places he could end up, he finds himself in Medina.
Mm.
Now, for our listeners who might not know, this is incredibly significant because that's the very city
Yes.
that the Prophet Muhammad had migrated to.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So picture this.
Right.
Salman's working as a slave in Medina when he starts hearing rumors of a new prophet.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
And the description he hears is a man from Mecca
Okay.
who migrated to a land of palm trees.
Okay.
And this sends chills down his spine because his last teacher told him to look for these signs. So
Oh.
after decades of searching, could this be it? Could this be like the culmination of his
A
journey?
culmination.
The
Wow.
suspense must have been incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think was going through his mind at that moment?
I don't know, like excitement,
Yeah.
apprehension, like
Disbelief.
a little disbelief. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Mm.
But Salman, being the meticulous guy he is, decides to test
Okay. Yeah.
the prophet's claim, right?
Yeah.
So he offers him charity, then a gift,
Hmm.
remembering his teacher's words that the prophet would not accept charity,
Right.
but would accept gifts.
Oh, wow.
And guess what happens?
Like-
That's exactly what unfolds.
Wow.
Right? The pieces of the puzzle are starting to fall into place.
Yeah.
But he needs one final confirmation. So during a funeral,
Okay.
Salman catches a glimpse of the prophet's back
Mm.
and sees the seal of prophethood, right? This distinct birthmark he had been told about. Just to clarify for our listeners, the seal of prophethood is, a mark described in Islamic tradition as being present on the Prophet Muhammad's back.
Right.
And it was one of the ways people could verify his prophethood.
Right.
So he sees that mark
Yeah.
and he's overcome with emotion
Oh, wow.
and embraces the prophet, right?
Right.
Finally finding the truth he was searching for all those years,
Yeah.
decades of trials and tribulations, and he's finally found his place. What do you think the psychological impact of that was like for him?
That must have been so cathartic.
I know.
Right. Like a huge weight lifted.
Totally.
Yeah.
And, this moment where he finally meets the prophet is always highlighted,
Right.
but I think what's even more fascinating is what happens next.
All right.
His journey doesn't end
Right.
with his conversion. His master refuses to free him,
Oh.
right? And he sets a steep price for his freedom.
Okay.
300 palm trees
Wow.
and a large sum of gold.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, and it's a testament to the prophet's character that he immediately rallies
Yeah.
the Muslim community to help him.
Yeah.
They all chip in. They contribute what they can to help him gain his freedom.
That says a lot, I think,
It does.
about the early Muslim community and their values.
It does.
Right.
It highlights their commitment to supporting each other, especially those who were, new to the faith.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So with his newfound freedom,
Yeah.
Salman dedicates his unique knowledge and skills to the Muslim community, and he becomes the first to translate the Quran
Oh, wow.
into Persian,
Into Persian.
which is huge.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he's bridging cultures, right?
Yeah.
He's making the message accessible
Yeah.
to a wider audience.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's interesting to think about how his own journey, his struggles to understand different faiths
No,
and languages might have shaped his approach to translation.
that's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not just translating words.
Yeah.
Bridging worlds.
Exactly. He's bringing his own unique perspective and experience to this incredibly important task.
Right.
And this is just the beginning of his contributions to the Muslim community.
Oh, wow.
But we'll delve into that in more detail in the next part
Yeah.
of our deep dive. So stay tuned, folks. We're just getting started.
Oh, my gosh.
I know. It's going to be good. All right. Welcome back to our deep dive
Mm-hmm.
into the life of Salman al-Farsi. So before we jump back into his personal story, I think it's important to zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So remember that epic rivalry between the Romans and the Persians we talked about?
Right, yeah.
Well, things are really coming to a head
Okay.
during Salman's lifetime.
Right.
So the Roman Emperor Heraclius, he was on a mission to finally put an end to the Persian threat.
Mm.
And he launched this massive campaign that really devastated the Persians. It was a major turning point in this centuries-old conflict, right?
Yeah.
And all of this is happening as Islam is emerging in Arabia.
Right.
So it's like the whole world is in flux with these massive, power shifts happening everywhere.
Yeah.
And the Prophet Muhammad, having established a Muslim community in Medina, he starts sending letters to rulers around the world inviting them to Islam.
Mm-hmm.
And one of these letters goes to Khosrow II,
Right.
the Persian emperor.
The emperor. Okay.
What was his reaction?
Well, Khosrow II, he was known for, his military achievements, but also his pride.
Right.
So he didn't take the prophet's message very well at all. Yeah. He tore up the letter
Oh, wow.
and even threatened to capture the prophet.
That seems like a pretty extreme response,
Yeah.
don't you think? Like, it kind of reveals a lot about how he viewed himself and his empire.
Oh, absolutely. I think it suggests that he saw himself as invincible, maybe even like divinely appointed. Right. He couldn't fathom that like a new prophet
Yeah,
from like this relatively unknown region could pose any threat to his like vast empire.
right.
Right.
But here's where things get interesting. The prophet, upon hearing about Khosrow's response, he simply said, "May Allah tear up his kingdom as he tore up my letter."
Wow.
And what happens?
Well, I had.
Khosrow's seemingly unshakable kingdom is thrown into chaos.
Oh, wow.
Right? I mean, it's almost like a scene from a movie. Khosrow's own son ends up killing him,
Oh, my God.
which triggers all these rebellions and power struggles within the royal family.
Yeah.
And so the Persian Empire, weakened from within, was ripe for the taking.
Right.
And it's at this point that the Muslims, led by Caliph Umar,
Okay.
start expanding their territory.
Mm-hmm.
And they win a decisive victory against the Persians at the Battle of Qadisiyah. And this opens the door for further conquests, eventually leading them to the Persian capital, Ctesiphon. Now, it's important to remember that Salman al-Farsi plays a key role in this victory.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so the Muslim army, they reached the Tigris River,
Okay.
which is essentially a massive barrier
Right.
protecting Ctesiphon. It's like a giant moat, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And the Muslim generals, they weren't sure how to proceed.
Uh-huh.
And then Salman steps forward.
Wow.
And drawing on his knowledge of Persian military tactics, he suggests a bold move.
What is it?
He says the Muslim army should enter the river,
Mm.
demonstrating their faith and their determination. What do you think the impact of that was?
I mean, I imagine the Persian forces must have been completely taken aback.
Yeah.
You know, they saw the Muslim army marching into the river,
Yeah.
and they panicked.
Mm.
Some of them even believed that the Muslims must be aided by, like, supernatural forces.
Right.
They abandoned their positions, which allowed the Muslims to cross the river.
Unopposed, yeah.
I can only imagine how impactful that moment must have been. Like, thousands of Muslim soldiers marching into the river. I mean, their armor gleaming in the sunlight
Yeah.
while the Persian army scatters. It's a pretty powerful image.
It is.
It's a testament to the power of both faith and strategy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Solomon's insight, combined with the Muslims' courage, proves decisive
Right.
in this battle.
Wow.
And this victory paves the way for the Muslims to reach Ctesiphon, the heart of the Persian Empire.
Mm-hmm.
They surround Khosrow II's magnificent palace,
Wow.
the very symbol of Persian power.
Right.
I mean, it must have been quite a moment.
It was, yeah. And who do you think was at the forefront, guiding the Muslim forces?
No.
Salman al-Farsi, the former Persian prince,
Wow.
who had dedicated his life to Islam.
I mean, it's pretty poetic when you think about it.
Yeah.
He's returned to his homeland, not as a conqueror,
Right.
but as someone bringing the message of Islam.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a completely different kind of homecoming.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to consider how his own journey, his own experience of leaving his homeland
Mhm.
and finding a new faith might have influenced his approach to this moment.
That's a great point. Yeah.
So, given his understanding of Persian culture, Salman is tasked with approaching the Persians and inviting them to Islam.
Oh, wow.
What was his message like?
Well, his approach was one of compassion and wisdom.
Okay.
You know, he reminded them of his own Persian heritage,
Mm-hmm.
emphasized the commonalities between
Yeah.
Islam and their existing beliefs,
Right.
and urged them to consider
Yeah.
the truth of this new faith,
Right.
you know. And he offered them the same honor and respect that he held within the Muslim community.
Hmm.
It was a message of unity and hope.
It sounds like he was really trying to build bridges rather than, enforce a new belief system.
That's right, yeah.
So-
But despite his eloquent plea, many Persians remained hesitant, clinging
Yeah.
to their familiar ways.
Right.
Right.
So ultimately, the Muslim army conquered Ctesiphon, bringing an end to the Persian Empire.
Wow.
It was a monumental moment in history, marking the decline of one of antiquity's greatest empires
Right.
and the rise of Islam as a major force in the world.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
You might think that after all this, Salman would have sought like a
Yeah.
position of power or influence
Right.
within the newly conquered territory. But that wasn't his style,
No,
was it?
not at all. He was a man of deep humility,
Mm-hmm.
and he preferred a simpler life.
Right.
He declined
He declined.
the governorship of the region choosing a path of continued service and devotion.
That's remarkable. I mean, imagine turning down the opportunity
Right.
to govern such a vast and wealthy region.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think motivated him to make this choice?
Well, I think it points to his deep understanding of the values of Islam. He recognized that true leadership wasn't about power or prestige, but about serving others
Yeah.
and contributing to a greater good.
Right. Okay.
It's a powerful reminder that true fulfillment
Mm.
doesn't necessarily lie in worldly success.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly challenges our modern day notions
I know.
of ambition and achievement.
Yeah, yeah.
So what path did he choose instead?
Well, he chose a life of quiet contemplation
Okay.
and simple labor. He started planting date palms, tending to his orchard and selling this produce.
It's almost paradoxical,
Yeah.
isn't it? This man who had been a prince, a scholar, a traveler, a key figure in the conquest of an empire,
Oh,
found contentment in cultivating land.
right. I think it shows his detachment from worldly possessions.
Yeah.
And his focus on a more spiritual path.
Mm-hmm.
It's a powerful lesson
In finding contentment.
in simple things.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not like he completely retreated from public life.
Right.
He continued
Sharing his knowledge.
sharing his knowledge of Islam with the Persians
yeah.
and inviting people to the faith.
So he continued to contribute to the community in a meaningful way, even without holding
Right.
any official position.
Exactly. Yeah.
It seems like he truly embodied the idea of service and humility.
Hmm.
But we'll have to hold that thought because we're out of time for this segment.
Okay.
But we still have so much more to unpack about Salman's life and his enduring legacy.
Right.
So be sure to join us for the final part
Yes.
of our deep dive into the life of Salman al-Farsi. We'll explore his personal relationships, his unwavering commitment to his faith, and the legacy he left behind.
All right. Welcome back to our final part of this deep dive into the really extraordinary life of Salman al-Farsi. We've explored his incredible journey from Persia to Medina,
Right.
his conversion to Islam,
Yeah.
his role in the Muslim conquests.
Yeah. But what really strikes me is that, despite all of this, Salman never sought power or prestige.
That's right. Yeah, he seems to have genuinely embodied those Islamic values of humility and service.
Yeah.
Even after the conquest of Persia,
Yeah.
he chooses this simple life, working his date palm orchard and continuing to share his knowledge of Islam.
It's really inspiring, and makes you think about what true fulfillment really means, right?
Yeah.
It's not always about, worldly success.
No, it isn't. And you know what I find particularly fascinating is how Salman managed to bridge different cultures and belief systems.
Yeah. Right.
He was born into Zoroastrianism,
Yeah.
explored Christianity, and ultimately found his home in Islam.
Right.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and he did so without rejecting his Persian heritage. Instead, he kind of used that understanding of Persian culture to make Islam more accessible to his people.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
He seems to have had this remarkable ability to find common ground and build bridges between different worlds,
Yeah.
which is a skill that's so relevant today.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially in our increasingly interconnected
Right.
and diverse societies.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, amidst all of this, Salman maintained strong personal bonds.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned earlier his friendship with Abu Dar. Can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so Abu Dar had settled in Jerusalem
Okay.
and wrote to Salman inviting him to spend the remaining days together in the Holy Land.
It's a really heartwarming story, and it speaks to the enduring power of friendship.
It does, yeah. And Salman's response is quite interesting.
Okay.
He says, the only thing that makes a man holy is his deeds.
So it's almost like he's saying their location doesn't really matter as much as their actions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
True piety, he seems to be saying, is about living your values,
Right.
regardless of where you are.
It's a powerful message and one that's still relevant today. Our actions speak volumes.
They do. They
Yeah.
really do. And it reminds us that, faith isn't just about belief.
Right.
It's about, how we live our lives.
Now, as we approach the end of Solomon's life, there's this a really poignant moment on his deathbed.
Yeah.
He starts to weep. And those around him are puzzled,
Oh.
right? And they remind her of all the good he's done.
Right.
His closeness to the prophet.
Yeah.
His contributions to Islam. But Salman's tears seem to stem from a different place.
What is it?
He remembers a promise he made to the prophet,
Okay.
a vow to live simply, not to be burdened by material possessions.
Okay.
And in that moment, he's worried that perhaps, despite his best efforts, he he hasn't fully lived up to that promise.
Wow.
It's kind of heartbreaking in a way, but also very human, right? I
Hmm.
mean, even after a life filled with so much service and devotion, he's still striving,
Yeah.
still reflecting on how he could have done better. It's a reminder that the pursuit of righteousness is a lifelong journey.
It is, yeah. And it also highlights the importance of humility, even in the face of great accomplishments. Salman's life wasn't about achieving perfection. It was about constantly striving to align his actions with his values.
And I think that's a really powerful message for all of us.
Mm.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with a profound sense of awe and inspiration. You know, Salman al-Farsi's story is one of resilience, intellectual curiosity, and unwavering faith. It's a story that transcends time and culture, and it offers us valuable lessons in, perseverance, open-mindedness, and the importance of seeking knowledge.
And ultimately, it's a reminder that our journeys, however challenging they may be, can lead us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the world. Salman's life demonstrates that even in the face of hardship and uncertainty, we can find meaning and purpose by staying true to our values and striving to make a positive impact on the world around us.
So as you go about your day, think about what resonated with you most from Salman's story. What inspires you about his journey? How can his example guide you in your own pursuit of knowledge, meaning, and a life of service?
Because within this one man's incredible tale, there are universal truths that speak to each of us, no matter our background or beliefs. His story encourages us to embrace curiosity, persevere through challenges, and strive to live a life that reflects our deepest values.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it as insightful and inspiring as we did. Until next time.